Ah, yes, gather round, young children. It's time for the 25th. How about that? 25 episodes of this thing, BloodHorse Monday. That's what we call him Sean. They call me Louie. We were at the Haskell over the weekend. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Sandman. We'll be joined by John Green from his ownership. And of course, get the rundown of all things happening with New Jersey racing with Dennis Drazin later in the episode. But Sean, you are allegedly on vacation. How's the vacation going? You look very, you look like you have a black eye and you're trying to cover it up more than anything.
No, I'm out here enjoying the sun in Ocean City, New Jersey right now. Well, I guess right now I'm actually doing my best Bob Baffert impression of wearing
No.
sunglasses indoors. So we're doing that, but trying to have a vacation. But I was just too excited about what happened over this past weekend to take an episode off. So we got to take off the sunglasses for the vacation, put on the actual glasses, and dive into this past weekend because it was a fun one.
I don't like that at all. You having to work here, but it is part of the deal here. Louie Rabaut, Sean Collins. This is
I chose to do this, by the way. Let the people show.
I have done a show in Puerto Rico, right next to the ocean. So you and me, my friend, we're not so different on this show for sure. Plus, we just love. Look, this is. I know it's work, but it doesn't feel like it.
Especially after a weekend like we just had at
that's
Monmouth Park.
Yeah, and look, Sean, I've now only been to 2 Haskells, but both of them were, the attendance numbers that they are 40,000 plus on Saturday. I wanted to start with that. The journalism, we know he's great. But just the crowd and different things. Can I go on a mini rant here? Can I gripe a little bit to start the show?
But I do want to put in perspective first before you start your little mini rant. This is the largest crowd that the Haskell has seen since American Pharoah was there in 2015. Right. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about a couple of the same things here, whatever your rant is about. But I do want to kind of also give a little shout out to journalism. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things I heard around the track on Haskell Day as I was walking around. But go ahead on your little mini rant.
No. You know what? Good point by you. Let's start with the star of the show. Let's start with journalism.
All right. Well, I just want to say, we keep saying how this sport needs stars in racing. Walking around Monmouth on Saturday, journalism is one of them. Because the amount of people that I heard, and these are people who seemed like they were not horse racing fans, that this was, their typical one visit to the track. Oh, the Preakness winner's here. Did you hear the Preakness winner's here? Did you see his Preakness run? It was amazing. Oh, did you see his runs against Sovereignty? Like, journalism's here. You had people talking about that the entire day. I was hearing it nonstop. Yep. You had, I remember I was standing near one person in the paddock area 3 or 4 races beforehand. She's on the phone with somebody else that was with her at the track that day. She said, I'm not leaving this spot because I'm right up in front where I'm going to be able to see journalism when he comes in. Wow. So there were people waiting in the paddock for him specifically. When he came walking out of the tunnel, there was a big roar from the crowd when he came walking out of the tunnel. Not to mention the gigantic roar from the crowd. I still have goosebumps thinking about it as he was coming down the stretch. That was absolutely insane. One of the loudest crowd reactions I've ever heard at any race that I've been to. That final 16th of a mile, it was so loud it made my ears hurt. And I was up in the front of the top section of seats filming that race, and I could hear just the sound of everything coming up in my direction. It was awesome experience. Amazing race by journalism, an awesome experience at the Haskell. And he's a star. We need to give him the credit that he deserves. Obviously he and Sovereignty are both at that top level, but there's something about his wins that just resonates with sports fans, resonates with people who don't usually follow racing, and it just makes him into an even bigger star, one of the biggest ones we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I always go in my head with, man, we don't need stars. This is horse racing. We run every day. We don't need this. And then Torpedo Anna happens and everyone falls in love. And then journalism, who's not even the best in his division potentially, gets this kind of reaction. Sean, you're totally right. And it is a reminder, especially, and my essentially my rant was going to be, stop complaining about who's showing up, especially when it's younger people. Don't whine that a broke college student isn't betting. Stop. Yeah. They're there. The point is to get them in the door before they're 30 so that when they are 30 and have money, they spend it there, right? Exactly. That's the point of all of this.
Not to mention they paid admission, they paid concessions. It's like they might not be betting. They're still giving money to the racetrack here.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. A beer bought on site doesn't go through an ADW. It just goes
not. The track gets to pocket all that money. It doesn't just...
And Sean, I found myself because of, and you and I are lucky, we get to be right there for these races. I was in the winner's circle for the Haskell, right? This is a
Yeah.
cool part of the job for sure. But you know what I did the last eighth of a mile when I knew he was going to make his run? I didn't know if he was going to win or not. I assumed he would because this is what he does, but I didn't know if he was going to win or not. But Sean, I caught myself looking back like this over my shoulder to the larger crowd just to see the reaction. You would have thought it was the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, I know.
You would
Yeah.
have absolutely thought it was the Kentucky Derby with him making that late move. So not only were people excited by the race itself, like you said, incredible noise. When he starts making the run, and you're right, there's something about him because he makes his runs in the middle of the track by himself. You know who he is, and he's making that late run. That crowd starts going. I watch the head start bobbing because people are jumping, right? This kind of stuff. Like you can see it as you're standing there. And that only happens with journalism. If that had
Mhm.
been, I don't know, pick another Kentucky outlaw making that run, it's not the same.
No.
It just isn't. It's not the same. And so to that point, Sean, you're totally right. And frankly, if that was your first time at the races on Saturday, and the only bad thing was that it rained for 5 minutes, I think you're probably going back. And that's the point here is stop complaining about whether people are wagering or not. Just get them in the darn door. Just get them in
Well,
the door and then we'll figure it out.
to back off of that, I saw somebody on I think it was Twitter. I saw somebody somewhere who to exactly what you just said about the
Mm.
fact that they were screaming for journalism. Their counter argument to that was, well, they were only doing it because he was the 2-5 favorite and they had money on him.
Okay.
So what?
Yeah, thank
Now
you.
that they know what his name is now, they had a thrilling experience cheering him home as he was coming down the stretch. Guess what? That's what turns people into racing fans. I became a racing fan because I was cheering on Smarty Jones. I was cheering on Barbaro as they were coming down the stretch. I had no idea who they were beforehand. I had no idea what horse racing was beforehand. But guess what? Here I am now doing a podcast about horse racing every
Right.
single week. So obviously it works, and that's what you need. You need people to be excited about it. You need people to have that experience with it, and that's what's going to get them back in the door. That's what's going to get them to show up at Monmouth on a Saturday next month or a Saturday in September. That's going to be what drives them back to the Haskell next year. That's what you need, and journalism delivered on that part
Do you know what my parents invented? They invented the strip mall and the drive-through.
of it. Mm-hmm.
It was go out, get your stuff, and go home. The next generation is rebelling against that. Your generation, Sean, frankly. Okay. People in their 20s. It's not about stuff. Your generation's not about stuff. It's about experiences. And
Yeah,
going to the track is an experience, right? You have to wear a certain outfit. You have to be ready for the conditions. You have to be thinking about what your bankroll is for the aforementioned food and drink, and then for betting and those kinds of things. It's a legitimate experience. It's almost a journey to go to a day of horse racing, right? Figuring out
yeah,
all of those different aspects to it. That's what I'm talking about. Like, there's an opportunity here because the sport is shifting toward big days, ironically, for wagering purposes to get more money in the door, but it's creating these big events for younger people too. And we got to stop fighting this stuff, man. These internal battles. If you were one of those 25-year-olds who went to the Haskell, it was your first time at the track, and you had a blast, and you just
mm-hmm.
went to X and you searched Haskell, and someone said, "Why are these bum kids in the way?" Why would you ever go back? Why
Yeah,
would you ever do that? We're fighting ourselves for no reason on this stuff. And I hope that in the future, people will simply look to a full crowd and a bunch of excited people who are actually like they're paying attention. You can't
yeah.
even get a kid to pay attention at a Mexican restaurant when there's nachos in front of them. I mean, come
Yes.
on. And so this is the good stuff. It really is. And so I'm so glad you and I got to go and look other races as well. So obviously win and in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Their journalism,
Mm-hmm.
one of those participants that we expected anyway. I'm sure the connections don't mind having the fees paid for all of that stuff
That
for sure.
helps.
I do think, look, it reported on Thoroughbred LA radio yesterday with my guy John Lindo that journalism's going to stay west after this race and probably train for the Pacific Classic. Sean, are you surprised by that? I'm not at all.
I'm not surprised by it. No. We'll see if that changes. I'll say that.
I'm with
I
you on that part because anytime I
don't-
hear that he's going to take a little time, his next workout's the fastest he's ever
Yeah,
had. He's just
yeah, he's
ready.
gonna he's gonna hit the work tab in 2 weeks, and he's gonna look like nothing has happened at all this year, and he's
I
about to
think
make
you're
his
right.
first start off the layoff, and we'll see what happens. He's the kind of horse that he needs work. He just loves his job, and he needs to keep going out there and doing it. So we'll see whether or not he's able to wait that long, but we'll also see what happens on Saturday and see whether or not that has any kind of impact on decision making.
Hey, Del Mar, card a non-7 lifers race right now. You understand me? Something. Give this horse something to do in the next month here. All right. Sean Clearville hanging out with you. Sean at the Jersey Shore. I'm here in the BloodHorse studio hanging out with you on a BloodHorse Monday. It's the 25th episode of this show. And by the way, if you are someone who has hung out with this show multiple times, if you found us for the first time, Sean and I are very appreciative of that fact. The United Nations was right beforehand. And I know you've got an interesting stat about not just who won that race in redistricting, but in that another race that he came out of.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to owner and breeder Richard Klein for pointing this out to me earlier today. He has Brilliant Birdie, who was in the Muniz Memorial Classic Stakes at Fairgrounds back in March. We've seen several horses come out of this race to run very big races. Spirit of St. Louis finished fourth. He comes back and he wins the Turf Classic on Kentucky Derby Day. Redistricting obviously just won the United Nations Stakes at Monmouth. Rebel Red came back and won the Chorleywood at Churchill Downs. And then, of course, Brilliant Birdie himself came back to win the Wise Dam Stakes last month at Churchill Downs. So talk about that being a very important race, it looks like, this year, with a lot of those horses coming back running huge races throughout the summer here.
We've seen that turf course. Last year we saw it with sprinters. This year we're seeing it with routers as far as future success. But there's something about that Fairgrounds winter having a place to run on the green, that isn't Gulfstream or out in Southern California, something like that does seem to matter. And so hopefully they got those issues. Need that turf race into New Orleans. It has obviously led to much, much better racing that way. Immersive doesn't show up like we thought at Saratoga. Are we blaming Saratoga? Are we worried about Immersive, or is it both, Sean?
I don't know. It might just be one of those things where she was so dominant at 2, and now the other 3-year-old fillies have maybe caught up to her a little bit.
She had to take some time off, right? I mean,
yeah, she had to take some time off. This was her second start of the year, so I'm still okay with giving her, another chance in another race down the line. I still think she's probably one of the top fillies in this division. I also think things just really did set up for Scottish Lassie to third off the layoff to really be able to run her best race. If you haven't
maybe not by
already
15,
seen,
but yes, it's
yes, well, yeah. If you haven't seen it already, if you're listening to this and you haven't been on BloodHorse's YouTube channel this week, I actually had the opportunity at Saratoga last week to ride around with trainer Jorge Abreu while Scottish Lassie was paddock schooling and doing her morning training, and got to talk to him while we were on the golf cart following her. It was a really cool video, so make sure you go check that out on BloodHorse's YouTube page, especially since she just dominated the race right after that video was taken. So that's pretty
this
cool.
show is very good for future.
I know we're great at predicting.
Fantastic.
Who's going to win these
welcome.
races.
Aaron Wellman, you're welcome. I mean, who didn't come on the show? Immersive's connections before that race. How about that?
They did not. No, they did not. So maybe that's all there is to it. You just need to be on BloodHorse Monday in order to win the race.
That's exactly right. You jump on BHM, it's over. That's exactly right. All right. Well, let's welcome in our first guest of the day. John Green joins us from DJ Stable. Appreciate him jumping on the show here. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. And now that I hear that success you don't need to do anything other than just show up on the show. Yeah, that's awesome.
Welcome. Yeah. Great news for you here. Of course, Sandman will run this coming weekend at Saratoga, but lots of good things happening for your stable right now and for your group there. Sandman's going to get the social media attention and deservedly so. He's a cool horse for sure, but man, Nitrogen's getting within our circles at least just a ton of attention this year, deservedly for sure. Did you know this could be coming to this level? I mean, goodness gracious, she's spectacular.
Yeah, you hope. You hope and you dream, and when your head hits the pillow, that's what you think of. You think of these big races, whether it's the Derby or the Oaks or Breeders' Cup or anything of that caliber. But you guys know mathematically, there's less than a 1% chance that your horse will make it to a Grade 1, let alone win a Grade 1. So the odds are stacked against you, and we're just very fortunate to have not only good horses, but a really good team of human beings around us that are helping us navigate the waters.
Now, take us through Sandman. He's been off for a couple of months since the Preakness Stakes. I was back talking to Mark Cassie and Terry Finley at the barn last week after he did his breeze. Seems like they were really confident that this time off has done him well. They've seen him grow a little bit. How excited are you guys to be getting him back to the races?
The thing with Sandman has always been twofold. One is how is he doing physically? You know, that the Tappets tend to run a little bit lean, a little bit more like a greyhound, as it were. And because of that, you know, sometimes these races take a little bit more out of them than they do your average, you know, thoroughbred. So that's one thing. And the other is, you know, from a style standpoint, he showed early on that he had early foot speed. You know, cross out the first race because Mark's horses first time out never run well, and if they do, you know, they're champions because you know, he just really doesn't tighten the screws on them. But when Sandman won 7/8, you know, at Saratoga, he went 22:45, 111, and was skipping along pretty well. And then as we were going, you know, further with him, we let him develop a style of his own where he could kind of relax, take a breath, let the speed go out there. Because as you guys know, as 2-year-olds are evolving, most of them run to the front. So it was to our advantage to kind of let the speed go and let Sandman kind of pick them off as they come down the pace. But we were never able to get him to come back to the form of going out, getting close, and having tactical speed. And we know he has it because he's breezed, you know, sub 1 minute for 5 furlongs easy. He's gone 46 flat, you know, in the mornings, and it's never been an issue for him to show the speed. But to be able to marry the two of having tactical speed and still a kick at the end, that's what we want. And now with the blinkers, it seems like that the light has gone on with the horse, and he's training really well into them. And we expect a big outing in the Jim Dandy, albeit I think the other 4 horses in the race are all legit, and they're expecting, you know, big outings also. There's a reason why the Jim Dandy is on people's schedules and on their calendars, and it's because of a field, albeit not a deep field in numbers, certainly a deep field in talent.
John Green with us. He's the GM at DJ Stable here on BloodHorse Monday. Louie Rabaut, Sean Collins hanging out with you, post Haskell edition of the show. It's interesting you went straight to tactics with him because if you look at the results with Sandman, it's undeniable he's been very good his last 3 races. He wins the Arkansas Derby. You get that grade 1 win with him. He finishes in the top third of the Kentucky Derby. I always tell people, essentially, if that's an 8-horse field, your horse finishes second, right? Something like that at very worst. And then, you know, comes back in the Preakness 2 weeks later and runs. Look, I think we've lost what else happened in that race. We think of journalism for sure and all of the mayhem on the inside. Gosger gets run down at the end. I think we forget that he did some really good running at the end of that race. Did Sandman. 2-parter here. You mentioned the change in tactics here. I'm interested in if you think he'll kick it in. And the second part is, what went into your decision to go to the Preakness this year?
Well, let me take the second one first because
Sure.
that's a little easier. And I'll quote my good friend Aaron Wellman when he talked about his top horse journalism last week on your show, and he said we let the horse tell us, and that's really the truth. I think that the best managers in the industry are the ones that, you know, let the horse tell them, let the trainer, you know, read the tea leaves and watch the horse train, and then get an understanding of where the horse is best. I was terrible at this. I had a really bad habit of, when we had a good horse, I would immediately start working backwards from, you know, 4 or 5 months ahead. Where do we want to be? And that's great as a strategy, you know, on paper. But in reality, these are athletes, and these are horses that are going to go, you know, ebb and flow as far as their interest. They are horses that maybe get sick or have a little issue. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes the racing gods aren't in your favor. Sometimes you get, you know, the luck of the draw and you get right where you want to be. Other times you're stuck on the rail or you're in the 12 hole. So there's a lot of things that go into whether or not you can have the ability to win a race. But to be able to really project more than 1 or 2 races in advance is really difficult to do. And you're not doing the horse the service that they need to tell you what's going on. So I think Aaron Wellman said it much better than I did even last week, where you just let the horse tell you and then you prepare accordingly. So that was number 1. Number 2 is I don't think that Sandman has to show 22 flat, 44, especially in this race going 9 panels. I think there's one speed just on the immediate outside of us in Moplex. I think that if we were 4 or 5 lengths off of the front runner, that would be a great start for us. That would be better than being 12 lengths off like he was in the Preakness, 15 or 20 lengths off like he was in the Derby. And even in the Arkansas Derby, he was like a dozen lengths off it before he started to kick in and run. And you know, I wonder sometimes if it all goes back to the Southwest when he got, he basically almost threw the rider. Poor Christian Torres almost fell off the horse. He did a yeoman's job of being able to stay on. And I wonder if the horse was like, hey, this is cool. I get to pass all these other horses, and this is really fun, navigating around. And that's what got into his head. And now that's what, to this past couple of weeks, that to his point was his running style. It's what his preferred style was. But the nice thing about Sandman is, again, unlike other Tappets, he's very smart, and he's very willing to listen to what the humans around him want him to do. And having that willingness to try to change things is really important, because I think that's the difference between having a horse at one level and get to the next level. If, physically is one thing, they're all developing, they're all growing, as you can see just by the sheet numbers and the buyer numbers, they're all improving, but they have to be able to also relax and not expend that energy and not expend that mental energy, and have it in the, in your resources to be able to get past those couple of horses. And I think, again, journalism is a great example of that. In the paddock, he doesn't turn a hair. And because of that, I really feel like that's one of the reasons why he's got the reserve to be able to kick and pass horses down the stretch.
And we're lucky here on this podcast. We have a wide range of people that listen to us. We have longtime racing people. We also have, people who are maybe just getting into the sport. And one of the things that I like that you said earlier is, Mark's horses don't always win first time out. Something you guys expected, something you guys are okay with. I feel like a lot of times there might be some owners that get their first horse in the industry. If they're not having that immediate success with the horse, then maybe they're like, oh, why did I do this? And they get out of it. And you just talk about the importance of developing the patience, developing the trust in the horseman, and what that is like for anybody who's maybe getting into the ownership side.
Yeah, Sean, I think that's a great question. And it's one that we try to tell people all the time, is that even the best trainers in the world are going to win 1 out of 5 times, 1 out of 6 times. It means you're doing a lot of losing. So if you don't have the inner fortitude and the patience and the pocketbook, quite frankly, the checkbook, to be able to, give a horse 2, 3, 4 starts before you really make a final decision on them, you're not in the right business. And it's always exciting when you win. Don't get me wrong. And we love it when we have a horse win first time out. Sure. But the reality of it is that we don't make an assessment on a horse until they've run at least 3 times, if not 4 times. And then we start to make decisions as to what we project the horse: dirt, turf, all weather, sprint, distance, or a different group altogether. And we've been very proactive, especially with the digital sales, of selling horses that we feel like would do better on other circuits than the ones that we're on. And those horses have come back and they've gone through their maiden races and their allowance conditions, and some of them even stake races. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I love when people come to us and say, hey, I bought this horse from you and it went on and did well 2, 3, 4 races down the line. That's great. I want them to be able to do that. I want that horse to succeed. But as an owner, you have to be able to have the inner fortitude to be able to say, I'm going to give this horse, 3, 4, 5 starts before I really make a hard and fast decision on what I should do. And if you can't do that, it's okay. It just means that you shouldn't be in this business, because you're going to lose a lot more than you win.
You have other stakes winners in your past. Their names are Web Slinger and Wonder Wheel and Dream On and Nitrogen and lots of other ones, but none of them had Griffin Johnson alongside them for much of the social media attention. Has that been much of an adjustment for your operation, or is he operating in such a way that it seems to not be, I don't want to use words like intrusive or anything like that, but has it changed your approach at all, your group's approach at all, or has he seemed to get it, even though this is really his first foray here?
Yeah, I give Griffin a ton of credit, because I think that even as a young individual in this industry that doesn't have a history of the business, it wasn't like his parents were in the business or grandparents, or it wasn't like he was going to the racetrack when he was a 5-year-old and had a real thirst and love for it. He has developed an interest in the horse. And granted, don't get me wrong, Sandman has been a great, horse for him to be attached to. If it was a horse that was running for maiden 10 claiming race, I don't think it would have the same kind of interest that it's drawn. But going into the Derby, we really felt like Sandman was the people's horse. I mean, and a lot of it was because of Griffin Johnson and because of America's Best Racing and their program. As a matter of fact, I have a call this week again with Dan Torchman of America Best Racing to do it again. Not necessarily even with Griffin, but with another influencer, with the idea of trying to broaden the scope of and the interest of our audience. I think Griffin was the perfect storm with Sandman. I think it was the right person, the right personality, the right horse. And he genuinely has an interest in the business, which is a lot different than other influencers who have been not just in that program, but in other programs as well. It was funny. Just a quick side anecdote. We ran 7th in the Derby, and I remember texting Griffin, afterwards, or I think I even walked up to him afterwards in the box, and I said, "Hey, you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win. To have your first horse be in the Derby is phenomenal. And I hope you appreciate." And he did. And the next day he texted me, "Thanks so much. It was really meaningful for you to, come up in that moment and say to me." I said, "Hey, just so you know, the vultures are circling now. Everyone's going to take a pot shot at you and everything like that." And it was funny because he said to me, "Now they're in my domain. I got this." And I started laughing as I'm reading it on the phone because I'm looking at it, and he's like my daughter's age, and I always think, okay, he's a kid, but he's really not. He's a very savvy business person, and I give Griffin a ton of credit for riding the upscale, the upswing, and taking it like a champ on the downswing. That's not an easy thing to do at any age.
Well, also another very important part to the team, of course, is trainer Mark Casse. He just had a big milestone this past week, getting his 4,000th career win. Just what is it like using Mark as your guys' main trainer, and just the success that you've seen with him? And what does this accomplishment mean to you guys as well? Because I know a lot of those wins have come with your horses.
Yeah, we've been with Mark now for, this will be our 6th year. Wow. And when we first got together with him, obviously he was already in the Canadian Hall of Fame. He was just about to be entering the American Hall of Fame in Saratoga. So obviously he had a ton of experience. And the thing that drew us to Mark was that he had experience across the board. So it wasn't just in training. It was also in going to sales and, learning from him what to look for, conformationally. He's taught me a tremendous amount of how to project what a horse is going to look like, which that in itself is an art. And I really feel like that it was kind of the right place at the right time for both of our programs, because we were ready to after 30 plus years, to step it up from a buying standpoint and try to buy some better bred horses. Mark had excess capacity in his stable that he was willing to go ahead and take on, a behemoth like us, because it's great when you have all these stake horses and stuff like that, but he's also got 60, 70 horses for us in total, and that's a big dynamic change when you're taking on a big operation like that. And I know, unbeknownst to your audience and to my audience on Rail Talk Podcast as well, I'm not the easiest guy to work with. So, there's also had to be kind of a personality mesh that worked, as well. And the first year or so together, we worked on our communication. And I realized very quickly that I shouldn't be trying to train horses in New Jersey from my desk. That's not my job. My job is multifaceted, but to try to micromanage a 2-time Hall of Famer, that's 8 states away from me is silly for a lot of reasons. And Mark also was willing to take on a big, ownership operation like ours, and basically change the way that he communicated. So, every other week, I should say, every Tuesday, I get a different report from him. On the first and third Tuesdays of the month, it's the 2-year-olds, and on the other 2 Tuesdays of the month, it's the older horses. And we go through them all, and we'll sit on the phone together for a couple hours and go through them one by one as to what's going on, how they're training, what our expectations are. And again, he's listening to the horses and telling me what he is seeing. And as a manager, I'm doing my best to try to say, okay, well, based on the information you're telling me, there's a race at Colonial, there's a race at Saratoga, there's a race coming up, so I can kind of fill in that void for him. And I think together we've done pretty well. So far we've been together 6 years, and we've had at least one horse in a Breeders' Cup race every single year. And now we have 2 champions, and and hopefully maybe a third. Although I listened to your midseason Eclipse Awards, I gotta take a little, umbrage with you as far as I'm not biased, but I personally think that Nitrogen's the best 3-year-old filly in the country right now.
I would not argue that if we see what we're expecting in the Alabama. I definitely won't be arguing with you on that.
All right, I had to smack around Karnacki a little bit to make sure that he said that Nitrogen was the best. So I'm glad to hear. But no, but I think that division. I know you didn't ask me, but that division of 3-year-old fillies is really amazing because any given race, it's changing. There's whether it's Lucara and or Good Cheer or Immersive and Nitrogen and the filly that just has now won two graded stake races, Scottish Lassie. I mean, there's now all of a sudden it was like, it's almost like, oh, there's nothing to watch on Netflix. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, there's 16 things I want to watch. Now, there's, Good Cheer is head and shoulders better. Well, now all of a sudden it's like there's a changing of the guard, and every race it changes.
All right. You just answered the question I was about to ask, actually. So that's good stuff, Jonathan. All right. So Jonathan Green for DJ Stable, he's the GM there. All right. Last one. We'll let you get out of here on this. I love to ask people about horses they don't own and don't train. I'm always interested in how they see the other, not necessarily just competition, but the other, players in the sport. Right. Hey, Jonathan, how good is the top of this 3-year-old class? Both Colts and fillies. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It really is. And again, we, on my podcast, we talk about it all the time about this 3-year-old class and how, we wouldn't be surprised to see a 3-year-old filly and a 3-year-old colt sweep their respective divisions when it comes to the Breeders' Cup. It looks like Torpedo Anna, you can make the case that maybe either McPeak's not peaking her yet, and that maybe she's coming to a, or like most fillies, they have a shelf life and they run really well, and then their biological clock starts ticking and they want to be broodmares. And that's just kind of the nature. We've seen it with Wonder Wheel and Jaywalk and other fillies that we've had, where there's no guarantee they're going to be as good, if not better, racehorse as the 3-year-old as they were a 2-year-old, and the 4-year-olds that were a 3-year-old. So I really feel like, and then with a lot of these colts that are retiring to stud deals, I'm not going to say that the cupboard is bare, because it's certainly not. There's certainly some great older horses, with Sierra Leone and Fierceness and the like. But, I wouldn't be surprised if this time, the second week in November, if we're talking and it's, that Journalism won, or that, we haven't even mentioned Sovereignty. All Sovereignty did was beat Journalism twice, So there's a bunch of horses, I think, in both divisions, both 3-year-old divisions, that are peaking and that continue to grow and improve. And it would not surprise me to see, both those, the Classic and the Distaff, being won by 3-year-olds.
There you go. It's John Green and DJ Stable. We appreciate him jumping here to BloodHorse Monday, slumming it on this podcast. We appreciate you very much hanging out with us.
Not at all. Thanks so much, guys. I really enjoy it, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Safe trips this weekend, bud. We'll see.
Thanks. All the best.
Thanks, John. There you go. John Green, DJ Stable here with us on BloodHorse Monday. Oh, man, Sean. The Sandman thing. It's interesting to watch that dynamic all together because, by the way, shout out to Steve Kornacki. All right. So who apparently did us good with DJ Stable. All right. So the thing with Sandman, how much he said, we felt like we had the people's horse by the time we got to the Derby. It's interesting. Or did they have the polarizing horse at the Derby? Because I feel like there was a crowd that was like, yay, Griffin's got a horse. And then there was a crowd of dudes who, I don't know, hate fixed odd wagering or something, that were like, why is this guy who doesn't bet enough taking selfies with his horse? And was he the people's horse at Derby? I'm trying to figure that out now.
I think he was the people's horse. I think there was a small little portion of people on social media who complained about everything very loudly, who decided to take issue with Sandman because that was the hot topic to take issue with. I do remember from being at Churchill through the lead up, Sandman got a lot of attention the entire week leading up to it, from people that were on the backside seeing it, from people that were on the front side coming in to watch. Part of that is he's a big, beautiful gray. Part of that is also because of the fact that he was a social media star, essentially. We haven't seen a horse be a social media star in this industry before.
Right.
So I do agree with that statement that he's the people's horse. There was someone at the Haskell, I don't know if you heard it, Louie. There was someone who yelled out when journalism was walking away, like that they yelled something along the lines of, sovereignty may have beaten him twice, but journalism's the people horse, something like that. So
Yeah.
Sandman's got to get his title back this week.
Well, we talked about that with Aaron last week when he was on the show. Appreciate John watching that episode. But there is a real sense that he mentioned the midseason awards. Journalism got the second most for horse of the year.
I know, when we did our fan vote. Yeah.
On the fan vote, ahead of Mindframe, who has multiple grade 1 wins in legitimate high level, maybe race of the year type grade 1s. I mean, just
the best horses that are out there.
Yes.
Supposedly.
And so that's where, it is a reminder. We talked about it to open the show. The 3-year-old division and what we do, especially in the United States, is just so important. And it's why when people get flip about the Triple Crown conversation and different things, it's not something to be flip about. That is not the place to be making quick decisions or, whatever, just, we feel like it should go like this. That's not it. This is way too important for what we do for it to be any different there. So thanks to John Green from DJ Stable. Appreciate him very much. I sat down last Friday with Dennis Drazin, who is in management there at his conglomerate runs Monmouth Park. Mm-hmm. And Sean, he walked me through many, many different things. His thoughts on wagering. Dennis is in the Sports Betting Hall of Fame. Okay. He's one of these guys. He is a Sports Wagering Hall of Fame. He is a person who is very forward thinking about these possibilities, these issues, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to even use the word issue. It's more just he is thinking about what the next thing is, either for the next generation or just to fill the coffers for horse racing. And I thought the conversation was very interesting. He also gets into what they want to do with the grounds there, the fight he had with the New Jersey government, all kinds of things going on. So here is my conversation from that beautiful, beautiful library there at Monmouth Park. Appreciate Dennis. By the way, this is a long conversation because Dennis was very, very generous with his time. Found out right before the interview, like my dad, he's a lawyer. So all of a sudden he liked me. But I think by the end, you have to tell me, Sean, if he still liked me by the end. I'm kidding, Dennis.
All right. We'll have to wait and see.
There you go. Here's Dennis Drazin and me Friday at Monmouth Park.
All right. Welcome into the library here at Monmouth Park alongside Dennis Drazin and Louie, of course, BloodHorse Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us to start your horse racing week. Dennis, happy Haskell, man. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you for having
right up by your face for me. There we go.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. We're sitting in your unbelievable library here at Monmouth Park. There was an NBC pre-production meeting in here earlier. Very official things happen in this room, but it's also just a beautiful spot. Is there a history to this room, or is this just an old school track that has a great library?
So this track was built in 1946. We started racing in New Jersey in 1870, but this facility was built in 1946, and this was the historic library where we keep all the souvenirs and tokens from the past and all the books that are going back to the 1800s and race records. And we do a lot of historic meetings here over the years and use this room quite a lot. But this room has a special meaning to all of us at Monmouth Park. And so welcome to the library.
No, I appreciate it. It's my second year set up in this space, and I've long joked that someone needs to make the social media page about the libraries of horse racing. I think I would have to start here. I mean, these chandeliers almost invite like a Viking to come invade New Jersey, do they not? I mean, look at the metal in here. It's incredible.
It's great here. You want to start that page? We welcome you to be the first.
Well, it'd be fantastic. We should probably do that here with Dennis Drazin. He's part of the ownership and the leadership team here at Monmouth Park. And Haskell weekend itself, I'm a lucky guy. I get to travel the country and be at tracks on their biggest days. It's really a delight of my job. I was just in Indianapolis for the Indiana Derby, which is going to have a very different feel, for example, than the day tomorrow here at Monmouth. How important is Haskell itself, the race and the day itself, as far as what you do here at Monmouth Park?
Haskell itself is the pinnacle of the season. So it's our signature $1 million race that's got historic significance. A lot of the champions, year-end champions over the years have come here for either Haskell or the supporting races at Haskell, dating back to, my favorite is the American Pharaoh year.
Oh, I'm sure.
We had 61,000 people here.
That's a little like the Wilt Chamberlain game for horse racing. 61,000 people were here, but 610,000 claimed they were. Right? It's one of those,
Right.
5,000 at the Chamberlain game, 500,000 people went. I feel like that day, what was that Pharaoh Day like?
It was amazing, but the part that surprised me, I expected a big crowd to have a Triple Crown winner here.
Of course.
But what surprised me was the whole week.
Mhm.
We had 10,000 a day come out early in the morning
Awesome.
to watch them train.
Yep.
So that was wonderful. The sun's coming up, the birds are chirping, nice and peaceful. And what could be better than watching horses on a track? But we've also had, over the years, horses like Ruffian come through here, Spectacular Bid, Rachel Alexandra, Serena's Song. I mean, I could go on, but, a lot of the classic famous horse races came through here. I was just doing a tour for tourism, and there's a 1958 banner for Bold Ruler, the Sire Secretariat, and the Alashiba silks were there, and we went to the Jocks room before that, and they had all the historical significance of all the different connections that came through Monmouth Park. But Monmouth Park is one of the jewels of racing in the country, and it's come to the horsemen and to me to preserve it. The track itself, the first version, was built in 1870. This more modern facility was built in 1946. The horsemen here and myself took over in 2012. Everyone was betting against us because it's not easy to break even with horse racing. But we're 2025 and a success, and just signed a new 87-year lease. So hopefully I live to see most of it. But if not, the state tells me my corporation, will have the lease and got to get younger.
That's all right. In horse racing, we're watching this model that you have here where the horsemen run the track. For example, in Maryland, we're seeing a revitalization of that model with the new Pimlico, what they're going to try to do at Fair Hill with the training center. Do you think your model is replicable around the country?
I do. Billy Knopf is down there now. Billy was here 26 years, did a great job. We're, of course, sorry to lose him, but it was a wonderful opportunity to be, on the groundbreaking of a new facility down there. And I think they'll get it done right.
So too. Yeah, I think so too. I'm very hopeful for what's going to happen in Maryland. It's alongside Dennis Drazin here on BloodHorse Monday. Louie Rabaut with you. It's the day before the Haskell. As we tape this, you mentioned that American Pharaoh Day. There's a lot of buzz around journalism coming this year, which has been really pleasant. We talked with Aaron Wellman last week on this program, part of the ownership at Eclipse. Talked with Matt Dinnerman, who calls the races here. You can just tell there's always a little bit of, because of the placement of this race, the Whitney next week, of course, the Belmont about a month and a half ago, some question as to who's going to be healthy, who's going to want to run in this race. But when you see the top two finishers out of the Preakness Stakes coming here, it's just a reminder not only of the star power of some of these horses, because people are legitimately excited about journalism being here, but that this is still very much a grade one. It's still very much an important race in our 3-year-old program.
Well, John Himes did a great job getting journalism, but when you look at the Triple Crown, and I'm not going to get into a discussion about timing of the Triple Crown. I have my own old school belief that it should stay as it is, but having said that, it always made sense for Sovereignty to be going to the Travers. Mott's a Hall of Fame trainer. He was destined to take that path. And, horses, running for year-end honors, Breeders' Cup, they don't always want to tackle each other in every single race. Credit journalism for running in every race, but, then the horses need a break after the Triple Crown. And Monmouth is positioned so that the Haskell is like the first big race back. And horses come here year after year, and journalism was like, it made the race. Not that I'm slighting anybody else in the race.
Totally get it.
But having journalism come to Monmouth Park for this race makes it very, very special. Not to say, look, Bob Baffert's going for his 10th, Haskell, and he's always been good to us and goal-oriented.
Gosgar's a great stakes winner and really good second in the Preakness.
Correct. Bracket Buster won our prep. But it's a good, solid field of 8. But, do I wish maybe, tracks weren't on top of each other so you get 12 horses instead of 8? But look, it's going to be a terrific day. And I think that year end, I can't predict what's going to happen with the Travers, but, journalism steps up and wins this race, and sovereignty, wins the Travers. It's going to make a hell of a Breeders' Cup Classic.
I always think of this race as the real time that I start to look forward to the Breeders' Cup, because I know coming out of here, we got the United Nations, we've got the Haskell. I at least know some of those runners, they're ones that, selfishly I'll have seen in person as well. Do you find yourself doing that? And how important is that link to the Breeders' Cup Classic for the Haskell?
It's extremely important, and it's always been a good link to the Classic. A lot of the horses that run here go on and win year-end honors, but we have a great undercard too. The racing office and John Himes, before him, Bobby Kalina, the big days are what's getting it done for the industry these days, and putting all these stakes together and making a giant day for racing is what it's all about. So last year we set a handle record. The year before we set a handle record. I won't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Weather always plays a little bit of a role, but I think this does, not that the Triple Crown doesn't, but I start looking forward to the Breeders' Cup when I see the horses run here. And, I certainly follow them on the Triple Crown Trail also, and the New York races and the California races, but we kind of root for the horses that win these races. And, Monmouth has, held its own for the year-end honors and Eclipse Awards and championship Breeders' Cup races. And it's exciting. It really is.
You mentioned these undercard races. I have to very selfishly admit, United Nations is, if not my favorite turf race in North America every year, it's up there. I love it. I think it's just a spectacular race every year. The Molly Pitcher, the Matchmaker, these kinds of races on the undercard, how important are they to your overall success here?
Extremely important. The undercard, the Haskell is, of course, the pinnacle of the day. But each division has an important race that's represented here over the 3-day weekend at Monmouth Park. And I think that the undercard, really, I looked at it the other day. I was impressed with my team at the horses. They were able to get to come. And I think that those races will ultimately end up producing some of the year-end Classic winners.
Yeah, I was very
Breeders' Cup winners.
Yeah, I agree. I was very pleased to see the undercard. Not surprised. I was going to say surprised. I was not surprised. I was very pleased to see the undercard, the way that it's set up. Dennis Drazin with us here. He's part of the leadership team here at Monmouth Park. I do want to ask you about some of the wagering options here at Monmouth, because it is different than other spots around the country. I find myself, when I'm on track here, watching both the pari-mutuel numbers and the fixed odds numbers. You were part of the movement to get fixed odds here. Why did you want fixed odds at Monmouth Park?
So first of all, going back a little before that, when the horsemen took over the track, Governor Christie was going to close the track if someone didn't step up to the plate.
Sure.
We lost all our subsidies. He didn't give any support to racing. He said, you got to stand on your own 2 feet, control your own destiny. But when I asked him about sports betting, he said, I'll let you run with the ball. So we took up a challenge that took 8 years to get sports betting done. And everybody kind of said I was tilting at windmills and I was crazy and could never win the case. And we lost 8 times in court. People started telling me, stop spending your money, stop paying legal fees. But I was determined. I thought if we could get to the Supreme Court, and each time we had a loss, it created a roadmap of how to go forward. So sports betting, ultimately was successful in the Supreme Court, gave us a revenue base here to help us sustain the industry. But what it also did is it kind of targeted me as someone who's willing to try anything. And so they came to me, from Australia, the bet makers guys, and they sat down here pre-COVID, and they gave me a pitch that was kind of simple. It was, we have 30 million people in Australia. You have 300 million in the United States. Your handle is 12 to 14 million. Our handle is 20 billion rather. Your handle is 23 billion over there. You really ought to try this, And so I wrote legislation. I moved it forward with our legislators, with the support of the governor at the time, and we got fixed odds done. But having said that, the other tracks and jurisdictions around the country are slow to come aboard.
Yes, they are.
Some need legislation, some need gaming board approval, some operators, have a mindset that it's going to cannibalize the pari-mutuel. So I think
Has that happened here?
no,
Not at all?
no.
Okay.
So what we did is we started with win, place, show.
Yep.
Because that's about a third of your total handle.
Yep.
So we were only putting a certain amount at risk. And we got a significant guarantee on an annual basis. So I always thought the guarantee would, make it safe. And it has.
Okay.
But, there are other jurisdictions that talk about coming aboard, like New York.
Right.
Dave O'Rourke is very high on fixed odds, but they had other priorities. First, they had to get the money for Belmont, which now they've done, and they're going to build a magnificent facility.
How exciting, huh?
Wonderful.
Right in the city, it's just spectacular. I'm really excited about that, yeah.
But, they're believers in fixed odds, and I think they'll get that done in the near future. I think that the Stronach group is probably close, but have not come on board yet. I think without knocking anybody, when I talked to Churchill, they told me over our dead body, they're not believers yet. I think they should be, but, that's their decision. I'm not going to criticize them. I'm not going to support, staying out of it, but they'll figure it out at some point. But I think fixed odds has a really big future in this country. But
in what way? Can you extrapolate on that? Can you talk about why you think fixed odds will play well with a new generation of bettors?
I will in a minute.
Okay.
What I wanted to say was that we were also the first to try exchange wagering. And exchange wagering failed only because we couldn't get the other jurisdictions to come on board and offer their signals. But exchange wagering, and the part that I'm hoping will come back, the unique part about that is there's new money there because you could bet once the horses break out of the gate until they cross the finish line. And now with sports betting, with all the in-play action being a large percentage, I think there's a future to bring back exchange wagering at some point. But the reason that I said fixed odds has a big role is that my experience here, and I'm a wanderer, so to speak. So I wander around the track and talk to customers. And one of the biggest complaints I always had was, you guys are letting people bet after the horses break out of the gate. Because I bet at 2-1. And by the time the horse got to the quarter pole, it was 3-5, 4-5. And you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, right.
And that's not true. Everybody knows that understands the business, but the public perception is different. And whether I like it or not, I don't want to get on a long topic of the CAWs at this point.
Sure.
But it is true that if you have a favorite and, you bet the horse at even money, you could be 1-5.
Right.
After it breaks out of the gate, and people don't like that. But when you talk to the younger demographics and they're used to sports betting and they're used to the odds and they're used to getting a return on their money, they like fixed odds because they know that when they make their bet, if they're being offered 2-1, 3-1, 5-1, 10-1, that's the odds they get later on when there's a payoff. So I think that the younger demographics get it. I think some of my contemporaries and those that are older than I, don't want to learn something new.
Sure.
So they're comfortable with what they're doing. I can sit in a box with them for 2 hours and I can say, okay, you got $12 back for your $2 bet. If you bet fixed odds, you would have gotten 23. And they say, I'm happy winning.
Wow. Yeah, right.
But the sharp bettors and the younger demographics, that's important to them.
I watch them both, yeah, for sure when I'm here, yeah.
And, it's not happening right now because we have a little immigration issue with one of the guys from Bet Makers that used to do our paddock show. Yeah, so I had trouble getting back. But when he was here, every race, he would be in the paddock on our show, and he would be explaining these were the pari-mutuel odds, this is fixed odds. And, as people listen to that and they get educated, they get it. And I think that if you look at the models from around the world and some of the more sophisticated bettors, they're real believers in fixed odds, but it won't be successful if we don't get the larger tracks and their signals.
Is there one for you that is more profitable for the track, or does it seem to work itself out? Because obviously in the takeout model, you know how much you're getting per dollar on a win bet, for example, but on a fixed odds bet, it's very different, right? You have to have money ready to go to hand to a customer, as opposed to being essentially a Western Union where you are just facilitating the transaction, right?
Like I hate to say what I'm about to say, but there's not one day of racing where I make money on the pari-mutuel handle.
Got it.
The operation costs too much. Even if you talk about a blend of 20% on a takeout, we're giving 6.6 to the horsemen.
Right.
We're paying a host fee. We're paying the other tracks. We have operational costs. The people that don't have a backside, like an app, which just doing an ADW.
Yeah.
They don't have the expenses I do. So while pari-mutuel is important and the handle growth is vital to our existence, it's not as profitable as people think. Like if let's just use a number, for example, 20 million for a Haskell day handle.
Sure.
People think there's a profit there.
Right.
Right. But look at the purses we're paying.
Correct.
Look
Yes,
at the
right.
costs that are involved.
Yeah.
Fixed odds, is different. The horsemen certainly get their share, but we get a fixed guarantee that helps the bottom line. But at the end of the day, I think that with fixed odds, assuming that we get more growth, it opens a world of opportunity. So we're about to, which is taking too long, frankly, but we have a deal with NYRA-Bets now.
Cool.
So NYRA-Bets is coming into the state kind of like a gatekeeper. So it's not going to be just an exclusive for 4 New Jersey bets. So NYRA-Bets will come in. They can sublicense every sports book and ADW that wants to participate. And as time goes on, I believe that with all the apps participating, not only is it going to grow our handle, but those that choose to participate in fixed odds, like we did in 2018 and 2019, parlays on Haskell Day, pick 4s with 3 legs on our races here at Haskell into a ball game. And we got crossover wagering. We got people betting on horse racing that never placed a bet before, and vice versa. We had some of our horse racing players that now are betting sports. So combining all that stuff is great. Plus, when you see everything on an app, like right now, I hate to say it, but horse racing, which I love, is a blip on the total handle in the world of gambling money.
No doubt about it.
Whereas, on sports betting, tennis has like 10% of the handle, but they're betting huge sums on sports. And now if you have it on all the apps and smartphones and it appeals to a younger demographic, you have at least 20 times the amount of eyes looking at your product. We have more content than any other sport in the world, and you can bet 24/7.
Yep.
We learned during COVID, people want to bet. They'll bet on Korean ping pong and Russian table tennis and whatever they can.
It's how my podcast got popular, is that we started in fall of 19. Arkansas Derby Day rolls around on traditional Kentucky Derby Day. Our numbers went up 10 times or something, and since then I've been able to do this for a living. Yeah, COVID was an incredible example.
But it doesn't stop there. I think the formula for the future is you have to make your brick and mortar venues destination spots.
Okay.
You have to have alternative revenue sources. We're building a $20 million Caesar Sportsbook on the property to supplement what we currently have. But we're also in the development business now. So we're building 298 units across the street on a parking lot that rarely gets used. We're doing a youth sports complex. We're doing a hotel. And when handled right, all of that brings in incremental money to the track to support its future infrastructure. And we just signed an 87-year extension to our lease. So we're going to be around a long time.
I passed a new development by the old Army station here, or whatever military operation was here. Brand new apartments, look beautiful, and I thought, oh, good, some new customers from Monmouth Park. So I'm thinking like you, Dennis, with all these
Fort
things.
Monmouth is being
We
have
Google bought
Netflix,
it, right? Netflix, that's
we
what
have
it was,
Netflix that's coming in there,
It's exciting.
and it's exciting. And they're going to do like the West Coast. This will be their East Coast hub, and
Right.
they're going to have. I think they're spending $10 billion over the next 10 years, and it's really making the area grow, and it's going to produce more customers. But racing needs to cater to the younger demographic, and I think that wagering on apps and wagering on sports and racing and fixed odds, and the other thing that I think is important, which we are doing, is when you see fixed odds and pari-mutuel side by side, you could take your pick of what you want to do.
I love it. Yeah, personally, I really love it. Last one, we'll let you get back to Haskell Day preparations. When you see the renovations and the start over, essentially, both in Queens and in Baltimore, as a spot that's in between those two and part of a larger East Coast, racing system that includes Delaware, Parks, and Penn National, whatever it might be, does that give you hope that there's going to be a lot more horse racing around here for a long time? You talk about this 87-year lease for you all here, but frankly, without a Maryland or a New York, it's pretty difficult to keep the New Jersey program going. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll always be able to keep going. I mean, I have faith in New York. New York, to me, is the biggest jurisdiction in the country.
Yep.
And, it's like the mecca of the best horses in the world. I'm not putting any other track down.
You're good.
I'm just saying, for me, it's New York. Other people may say it's Churchill for them. Others may say it's Del Mar for them. Others may say Saratoga, but Saratoga is part of the NYRA system.
Right.
But one thing I would tell you is that before I took over the lease here, Morris Bailey, who's a developer and a horseman, brought in a company called Populous, which is the same company that's doing NYRA and Maryland. And they gave us a vision of what we could do here. And we've done some of it. We're continuing to do the rest. But Morris Bailey, who's our development partner, has big visions for Monmouth Park for the future too. So It's not going to end with what we've talked about so far.
Fantastic. All right. Well, he's Dennis Drazin, of course. Appreciate him jumping on BloodHorse Monday with us here. Well, happy Haskell.
Thank
nice
you.
to finally meet you, and appreciate you jumping on.
It's a pleasure.
Very much. All right. Appreciate that.
All right, unmute myself there. There we go. Dennis Drazin from the leadership team there at Monmouth Park talked with me. That was Friday before the Haskell, of course. But so many topics, Sean. I could do like 6 hours on that part. But there was something that he said in there that makes me an absolute crazy person as I pull my eyeballs out of my head. Because I agree with him completely, which is we need to understand a couple of things about our sport moving forward. And by the way, this is Louie Rabaut's opinion and not that of anyone else affiliated with BloodHorse or anything else. I remember a couple of years ago, and I'm going to use a specific person as an example because I think of them as a friend. I hope she does with me as well. It's someone that I really respect as far as how much they pay attention to the sport is Caitlin Free. And I remember a couple of years ago, she was really upset, Sean. I'm sure you remember, when they moved the Classic at the Breeders' Cup to earlier in the day so that they could show a college football game after the horse racing. And a lot of people in the industry were really upset. Were you one of those people? I just want to know where I'm at. Okay, you were. Perfect.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense, putting the Classic not as well, especially last year when it was like in the middle of the card and there were 4 races after. Oh, that just threw off the whole day.
Right. So you're completely wrong about this, and here's why. So the thing that we need to be doing in horse racing is what Dennis is trying to do in New Jersey, which is that you make it a gambling option alongside other gambling options. Okay. So as football becomes something you can bet on and whatever else, I think it's way better for horse racing to be on right before a Notre Dame football game than on before some rerun on NBC. And I'm not exaggerating that. If that's why they move it to be on NBC, to be on the big stick before a Big Ten game or before, whatever, that's going to have millions and millions and millions of people watching. That's the best thing for horse racing. And so I disagree with you. I disagree with Caitlin.
Well, let me
about-
just say, I disagree, or I agree with you on that. I like it being back to back with the football. Just put the other Breeders' Cup races earlier in the day.
and move it
We
up,
don't,
right?
we
Yeah,
don't need all the
right.
undercard races at our Breeders' Cup races. We can put those later.
Right. Because I think
I
at
just,
Lamar,
I don't
there
like
were,
the
what,
order, but I
3
do
or
agree with you that it
4?
should be on the back.
There were 3 or 4 before the card. They could easily run those at the end. They're still $300,000 races. It's not like the jockeys are going to run away from running in those races or something. And so I'm with you on that. I don't know the best way to schedule it, but what I'm getting at is in an era, and I bring this up pretty often, Sean, in the same election cycle, the people of Florida voted for Ron DeSantis and to end dog racing. It's never been less popular to race animals in the United States. It just is. Okay. It's never been less popular. We need to make horse racing as normal a product as absolutely possible. And the best way to do that, be on TV right before football, be on TV after a baseball game, be at a track like Monmouth where you can walk downstairs, and you've been there a bunch. That Caesar Sportsbook is right there on the first floor. The actual brick and mortar sit down bar is right there. The door, you have to walk into the racetrack to get to it. And he talks about that brick and mortar thing. And I kind of did one of these, Sean, because everybody, digital. He talks about destination spots. We talked earlier in the show about how big the crowd was, how young it was at those places. Dennis is playing chess here. I mean, that's absolute chess. No, just get him in the building. And if we have to do that with sports wagering to keep this horse racing thing going, good on us. And to me, that is a model that can work. We're completely dependent on the legislature stuff, never works, because elections happen and things change and democracy and all the stuff, right? That for sure doesn't work. But if you can line it up like Dennis is talking about, where not only are there a bunch of betting options on horse racing, but we've put it alongside the other menu of wagering. And I know Frank's I wish you were here this week. Frank would be screaming right now. But I think there's something there. And I think Dennis gets it in a way that many people in the industry simply don't.
Yes, I agree with that. Listening to everything he said was very interesting there. But I agree with you on the, having it be paired alongside these other
Make it as
options
normal
is the way to go.
option. Yes, right. Yes.
Exactly.
Now,
And
like the Derby is its own thing. You wear the hats and the parties and everything else. I understand that. That's a national holiday as far as horse racing is concerned. But if we want races like the Traverse or the Arkansas Derby or the Cigar
Jim
Mile,
Dandy coming up this weekend.
Right. Get away from the 3-year-old races, even the Cigar Mile, whatever. If we want those to be national races, we need NBC to cover them, but NBC ain't going if people ain't watching. They were at the Haskell. Why? Because people watch the Haskell. That's why. But they also nestled it during other sports coverage, during baseball, during other things. And so it is, look, I'm unbelievably passionate about this weird point that I'm passionate about, which is that I really think one of the best things horse racing can do the next 10, 15, 20 years is just put horse racing next to every other sport that it can. Every basketball game, every football game, every ice hockey game, every baseball game, just have it be the next thing where we don't even think about it, because I think that's the best way forward for the sport.
Yes. And I believe you and Frank talked about it. Was it last week when we were talking about the gaming conference where just having horse racing on the same apps as your other sport?
Dennis was talking about that. Yes. 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah,
pick
exactly.
4
How
that involved the
important
Mets.
that is.
Like the Mets game was part of a pick 4. Yes, please put us alongside. That's what I want. If the horsemen get their money, we're good. This shouldn't be complicated, but I really appreciate Dennis. He sat down for a very long time. And I'm sure you've had this moment, Sean, where you're 15 minutes into an interview and it's the day before the Haskell. I mean, these people are busy, right? I mean, that place Friday was, I had to learn the security codes just to get around in the press box because everything was locked up. Everybody was doing everything else. It's totally fine. But we got to a point, and I just could tell he had another point to make. We needed to keep that conversation going. So I appreciate Dennis. 25 minutes, a very, very long time. And frankly, I hope he doesn't send me one of those lawyer bills because those guys get paid by the hour. Sean. Bad for my pocket.
You're paying that one. I wasn't part of that interview. I was watching the Louie up at Saratoga. You're paying that one.
I'm immediately forwarding it to Frank. That's what we're doing on this show. It's just going straight to Frank with that.
That's the price for missing the episode this week.
Oh man. All right. So we talked to Sandman's ownership earlier in the show. We look forward now to the Whitney here on Saturday, or not the Whitney.
Jim Dandy. You're a week ahead of us.
I'm way ahead. You know what it was? I watched White Abario work this morning, so I had that on my mind. But looking forward. Look, 5 horses here. This is always kind of a tough spot right after the Haskell. But we do get Sovereignty, we get Sandman, and here Moplex returns after a win. I thought this was a really interesting spot for Moplex coming out of that Ohio Derby, where I thought he did everything right. And if you wanted to get excited about a horse that might be on the come up, Moplex could be one of them.
And he's going to get the race set up probably. He's in against a bunch of horses who don't usually show speed. We'll see what Jonathan was talking about, trying to get some of that speed back in the Sandman. We'll see whether or not that puts him in a position to contest with Moplex.
Right.
We saw Sovereignty sit closer when he had to in the Belmont. This is going to be really interesting to see. Even though it's only 5 horses, this is going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
I think this is one of those, and Junior's no dummy, and I'm not calling any other jockey a dummy. He's going to know that they got to do the Belmont again, because there isn't going to be a ton of pace. Moplex is going to be it. They got to sit off of Moplex. This is where it gets fascinating for me, Sean. It's not 10. He very cool. Everybody's cooler than me. John's like, it's 9 panels. I never use the word panels. I'm not cool enough.
Well, maybe you need to start. Get yourself a little cooler.
I just need to be cool. These Jersey guys.
Is it too late for you to be cool? Is that
I'm in Louisville in a purple shirt. Like, it's just not going to work out for me, Sean. And I think at 10 you love Sovereignty, but I think at 10 you also love Sandman, and that's why I appreciated John saying, "Oh, we're not going to work back from," and because I was going to ask about Breeders' Cup, and then he said that, so I appreciate him saying that. But the other part is with Sandman, he's going to have to pass Sovereignty in this race, almost certainly, right? Because he's not going to have that early move that Sovereignty has. Now he talks about works and he talks about those things, working. And then being on the track and breaking from the gate with a starter and all those things, very different thing we've seen so many times with horses. And so it'll be interesting to see how he responds. Would it, let's ask this a very different way. If Sovereignty doesn't win here, is it the upset of the year?
I would say yes.
Popping to a grade 2.
See, I don't know, because
now there is a grade 1 winner in the field. If Sandman wins, he's already a grade 1 winner. It's not as though he's a nothing here. He top, 7th in the Derby, a 3rd in the Preakness. This is a good horse. Let's be clear about what Sandman is.
Let me give my reason for why it would be yes and why it would be no.
Okay.
So the reason why it'd be yes is because he has easily, to this point, he has easily handled journalism in the last 2 races. We know journalism's a freak. We know journalism's one of the best horses in this country. We saw it again this past Saturday. He's a winner. He knows how to win. He just goes out there and wins, unless he's facing Sovereignty. So from that perspective, the fact that if he lost this race and journalism is not the one beating him in this race, that does make it a surprise. That does make it an upset, even if the second choice wins or something like that. Now, why it wouldn't be a surprise is we know Sovereignty's main goal is the Travers.
Yeah.
We know when his main goal was the Kentucky Derby, he did not come out fully firing in the Florida Derby at the same 1 1/8. So, at that shorter distance, they did not have him fully prepped. Having talked to Bill Mott after his second last work, so the 2 works back, when he talked about the Jim Dandy, it again sounded like, we know this isn't the main goal. We're just kind of using it to get us to the Travers. So is he going to be fully cranked and ready to go? I don't know, which is why I wouldn't be shocked. And when the race sets up the way we're kind of expecting it to, where Moplex potentially could have an easy lead, if something weird happens and he just doesn't get the setup, and he's second, and it doesn't look like he's going to get there, and maybe Junior just goes ahead and saves him for the Travers, I won't be shocked by that. So it could go, I would be shocked to see him lose, but at the same time, I would not be shocked to see him lose, and I would still expect him to run huge in the Travers. So it's kind of I'm 50-50 on that question right now. I could see it going either way.
We also watched him win the Fountain of Youth off the bench too. So he's capable of coming off the bench when he's not needing to win and winning a race, right? So we've seen this before with Sovereignty. By the way, I'm not pushing back at all. I think everything you said is right. Here's why he's not going to win. Are you ready?
Yes.
No one from Sovereignty's camp was on the show today. So there you go. Done.
Oh, well, I mean,
Sandman, Sandman by a panel. By a panel. How about that?
We gifted Sandman the victory this weekend, didn't we?
By a panel. How cool am I? Look at me.
I'd say if we get another winner out of
Sandman
this weekend, we need to make this BloodHorse bump thing an official thing. We need to make T-shirts. We need to make everything. Everybody should be showing up to the track wearing it. We need to get that going.
I agree. You should have to pay to be on the show. There you go. All right.
Yeah, we'll start charging to come on. We're going to have owners calling us. Please put me on the show.
No, that's exactly right. All right. Well, we'll have plenty to react to. And of course, we will start previewing that Whitney, not the Dandy, but the Whitney next week when we get back together. And of course, another weekend at Ellis Park. We'll also have coming up very soon, Kentucky Downs Preview Day. Lots of good things going on in horse racing coming up as we get you through the summer and into Breeders' Cup season here on BloodHorse Monday. Well, he's Sean Collins on the shore there. Thanks for working on vacation, buddy. We really appreciate you. And by the way,
get the glasses off and head back out there.
I don't really care what people think of this. I had such a spectacular time at the Haskell, not just with you, but with our colleagues. Obviously, Matt Dinnerman, who was on this show, calls the races there. Just an unbelievable host, no matter where he is. He really is just so hospitable, just a really great guy. And man, friend of mine, he does really good work for us at the Turf Riders. Carlos Morales was up from the 305, as the kids say, from Miami. And not only does he work his tail off, Sean, he's just another spectacularly fine guy. And it was really nice to get to spend time with him. And good picture of the four of us. If you ever wanted to know, if you happen to listen to this thing, you wanted to know what Sean looks like without sunglasses on, you can go check that one out.
Or you can check out every other episode that we've ever done. But
don't do that. Go to Twitter and look at Carlos. All right. So this has been
a great weekend at Monmouth.
It really was. 25 episodes down, and hopefully many, many more than that to go. He's Sean. I'm Louie. Thanks to John, and thanks to Dennis for jumping on with us. Don't forget, folks, to get the magazine. We always want you to check out the magazine here at BloodHorse with tons and tons and tons of great options in it right there on the screen. If you happen to be on one of our viewing platforms, whether it be Spotify or YouTube, go click that QR code and get it there. If you haven't signed up for BloodHorse Daily, top of the homepage, bloodhorse.com, click on Daily, get signed up, costs you nothing, go straight to your email every morning. Wake up with BloodHorse and get caught up on all things happening in racing and all around the country. Again, he's Sean. I'm Louie. This has been BloodHorse Monday.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.